If you think Napoleon Bonaparte was just a footnote in European history, consider this. A 2013 book called Who's Bigger ranked every notable human being by measurable historical impact. Out of roughly 100 billion people who ever lived, Napoleon placed second, right between Jesus and Mohammed. Most people know him as battlefield genius. He fought in over 80 battles and won about 90% of them. A record no other commander in history has matched. He basically rewrote the rules of warfare, but his real history is stranger than myth. He didn't speak French until he was 10. He almost abandoned soldiering to write romance novels. He negotiated the biggest land deal in human history. Let's get into how one man managed to live several lifetimes worth of chaos in just 51 years. Napoleon was born on Corsica in 1769, just months after France has annexed the island, a move the local despised. His own pregnant mother had been fighting alongside Corsican rebels against French troops right up to his birth. Most historians call this siege of Toulon his first battle. He'd argued he was already at war in the womb. That early resentment towards France never fully left him, which made it brutal when his father sent him to a French boarding school at the age 9. He barely spoke the language and never lost his Corsican accent. A year later, he won a scholarship to a top military academy surrounded by wealthy aristocrats, while his own family had noble blood but no real money. He graduated at 16, joined the artillery, and quickly proved himself. But promotions stalled because in pre-revolutionary France, talent mattered less than bloodline. Then the revolution denoted the entire class system. The monarchy fell, the king was executed, and France became a republic, terrifying the rest of the monarchist Europe into forming coalition to crush it. For Napoleon, that panic was an opening. France suddenly needed skill, commanders regardless of birth, and in 1793 he caught shot at Toulon, leading a daring night raid that won the city and earned him a battlefield promotion at 24. His momentum stalled again. When he dodged an assignment, he considered beneath him and briefly quit the army to try writing fictions. But in 1795, when a royalist mob of 5,000 attacked Paris, he was landed emergency command of the city defense. With under a day to prep, he crushed the uprising using strategically placed artillery, losing fewer than 100 men. Overnight, he went from disgraced novelist to national hero. At 26, he took command of France's weakest army in northern Italy, starving unpaid on the edge of mutiny, and somehow turn it into a war machine. Within weeks, over the next year, he won 19 of 21 battles against superior number, forcing an entire coalition to surrender. He had ended a European war essentially solo. Next came Egypt, a calculated move to cut off British trade routes to India. He landed in 1798, crushed a much larger Ottoman force near the pyramids, but lost his fleet to Admiral Nelson shortly after. Trapped his army with no way home, he pushed into Syria, got worn down by plague and failed sieges, and eventually abandoning his own stranded army, sneaking back to France alone. The scientist he brought along, though, stumbled onto the Roselawn stone, the key that would later unlock hieroglyphics. Returning home to a collapsing government and a second coalition forming against France, Napoleon staged a coup in 1799, installed himself as a first consul, and effectively ended the revolution he had once fought to defend. He then personally led troops back to Italy, won again, and secured peace. Within Europe, briefly calm, he proved just as formidable as a ruler, introducing the Napoleonic Code, modernizing education, founding the Bank of France, and rebuilding Paris. But the reforms weren't universal. Women lost rights, and he quickly reinstated slavery in French colonies, despite the illusions abolition of it. Still riding high, he made himself consul for life in 1802, and along the way sold over 800,000 square miles to the U.S. The Louisiana Purchase, still the largest land sale in history. War with Britain resumed in 1803, and facing constant assassination attempts, over 30 in his lifetime, Napoleon decided permanence was safer than popularity. In 1804, he crowned himself emperor. What followed was a run of coalition wars, 3rd, 4th, 5th, all won. He pioneered mass conspiracy, built an army of 600,000, and invented modern military corps, splitting his forces into independent units. For speed, flexibility, no rival could match. He dissolved the Holy Roman Empire, beat Austria 4 times, and by 1812 controlled in most of the country. Only Britain and Russia remained unconquered. With the British Navy untouchable after Tafkla, he invaded Russia instead. 500,000 troops marching in the summer. Russia refused to fight directly, retreating and burning everything useful behind them. Napoleon won the Borodino and took Moscow, but Russia simply never surrendered. Standing in a city with no peace deal coming, he was forced into a retreat straight into a brutal winter. Cold, starvation, disease, and constant ambushes destroys his army. Only 40,000 of the original 500,000 made it out. He rebuilt, and inexperienced recruits fought off a 6th coalition, impressively, but ultimately lost at Leipzig, and was exiled at Elba. There, true to reform, he immediately began reforming the tiny island economy and re-infrastructure. Until restless, he escaped with just 700 men in 1815. The army sent to stop him defected to his side instead, and he retook Paris without a fight. A 7th coalition formed. Napoleon struck first, split the British and Prussians' army, beat the Prussians quickly, but the British held their ground at Waterloo, just long enough for the Prussians to regroup and crush his flank. It was his final defeat. This time, the Allies exiled him somewhere in Escapipel, a remote island of St. Helena, where he died in 1821 at 51 years of age. Historians still argue over how to judge him: Cain, hero, conqueror, defender. But his legal education and administrative reform still shape the modern world, and on pure military talent, there's no real debate. I'll let the man who finally beat him have the last word. Asked who was the greatest general of the age, was the Duke of Wellington answered simply, in this age, in past age, in any age, Napoleon.